And now it's time for your council recap. Jeremy Crosby here, Chad Brecklin over there, your city administrator. Chad, it's probably one of the bigger meetings because it was budget time.
Yeah.
But there were other things that happened at the budget at the Common Council meeting here from recent days. But nevertheless, how you doing?
I'm good, Jeremy. How are you today?
Good. I'm excited to talk about this budget. So let's jump in first and say there was a public hearing on the budget to kick things off for our council meeting.
Yeah, the council meeting from November 11th, as it always does on the evening of the budget adoption, at least the operating budget adoption. In addition to prior opportunities for public comment, there is always a public hearing and an opportunity for our community to comment on the budget and its amendments during this meeting. And we did not have anybody from the community come to speak in regards to the budget during that public hearing. So that obviously afforded the Common Council the opportunity to discuss the budget as they did throughout the rest of the evening to reach the conclusions that they reached.
We'll get to that conclusion coming up, but we had some other items on our agenda. We start with Plan Commission. They had an item for a request for, let me see here, primary plat. I wanted to say zoning. It's a zoning type of request here.
Yep, preliminary plat is one of the steps in the development process. This is a new development near the interchange of Highway 14 and Lacey Road, and this was ultimately postponed as the city continues to work with the developer to finalize the preliminary plat. So we anticipate that this will come back on either November 25th or December 9th.
All right, over to Board of Public Works approving the purchase of a brush chipper.
Yeah, the brush chipper that our parks and highway maintenance crews utilize is about 12 years old or so. So this is a request to move forward by replacing or purchasing a new one and to replacing this one. And that was approved by our Common Council.
All right, we move on to a resolution authorizing acceptance of the 2025 Storm Water Utility Facilities Maintenance Bid.
Yeah, that's a mouthful, isn't it? The city, and more specifically its stormwater utility, is looking to do some maintenance and improvements on a couple of our stormwater ponds, specifically the Quarry Hill stormwater pond and the Techlands pond, which is, I think, an infiltration type basin, if you will. And the city and its stormwater utility put out a request for bids on this, and ultimately this project was awarded to RG Houston, somewhere right around $800,000 to do both of those two projects.
They fill in with sediment and stuff, so you gotta clean them out to keep them to work correctly. This is what I've learned over the years.
And
so
you have learned well.
I have studied up. Next one is approving a budget amendment 1 for Cyan Road Phase 3.
Yeah, so the Cyan Road project has largely concluded, other than some really small kind of punch list type items that are taking place now. But it is open to traffic. Traffic signals have been all configured and are operational. This is a budget amendment due to the addition of some crushed material that was needed, both for the road and the stormwater pond. There might have been one or two other items in there that were needed for the budget amendment, but ultimately the budget identified for this particular project was able to absorb these particular amendments, so we were still able to stay under budget, as I recall.
It's a beautiful roadway if you haven't been on it, and we have a ribbon cutting coming up on that as well to commemorate the years of the 3 phases of that project, so pretty exciting.
Well played.
We've got amending the 2025 TID Closure Fund and Cemetery Fund budget.
Yeah, we have a couple of things that need to be done here, and some budget amendments needing to be passed in order to allow them to be done. One is some maintenance work at the Hugo Jamestown shelter, and then another one is to replace signage at the cemetery, as well as other signage in our park system. So that was ultimately passed by the Common Council as well.
All right, moving on to an ordinance revising Chapter 41 Solid Waste and Recycling and Chapter 70 for Forfeiture Schedule. Oh my goodness, big stuff here.
The Wisconsin Administrative Code was updated, and this resolution / ordinance was needed in order to ensure that our ordinance is aligned with the recent updates. So that's what that particular item is, and that was passed by the Common Council.
Moving on to Finance Committee, we have a supporting the levy and limit adjustment for an increase in the joint EMS district assessed charges.
So this is a levy limits adjustment that is available to municipalities that participate in joint EMS, joint fire, and/or joint EMS and fire districts. And what this allows municipalities to do is they can utilize the charges associated, and more particularly the increase in charges associated with EMS and/or fire services, and adjust that charge, if you will, or that levy limit based upon CPI plus 2%. And what this allows us to do is take the full levy limit adjustment, and it can be added on to our existing levy limit and does not count towards our levy limits, if you will. I know that's a mouthful, but for instance, we had about $700,000 in new available levy this budget. And because of the state laws, they allow us, in this case, to apply approximately, I think it was about $225,000 needed in new EMS charges. It is able to come on top of that levy limit instead of out of that $700,000. So hopefully that explains it cleanly enough. I know by your face that I may not
Don't look at me.
have made the mark.
The only summary I would say is
yeah.
that it has to be approved by all the joint districts here. So
Correct.
I don't want to say municipality, but you have
Yeah.
a town and municipalities here all have to agree to this.
Yep.
And I believe that has happened up to this point.
It has. Both the City of Verona and Town of Verona have passed this resolution, and that will allow the three municipalities, if they choose, to utilize this levy limit adjustment for this year's budget as well as future budgets.
All right, we move on to a resolution amending the 2025 general fund budget for fire vehicle maintenance.
Yeah, unfortunately, the fire department has had a bit of a rough year on vehicle maintenance, so they were doing an amendment to fund some past charges as well as to have a little bit more available for vehicle repairs through the remainder of this year.
We move on to direct referrals on a resolution approval agreement for payment between the City of Fitchburg and Sustain Dane for an implement of Phase 2 project. It's cutting off here, but I'm just going to stop there and let you pick it up from there.
So the city participates with Sustain Dane in an energy efficiency navigator program, and the city's funding for that is coming from the closure of successful TID, tax increment districts, and the creation of an affordable housing fund. And this particular amendment here is really authorizing the same amount of money that we were intending to utilize through our participation in this program to cover a different charge within the program. There was a grant that was intended to be utilized to cover something within this program. That grant had been clawed back by the federal government, thereby creating a funding gap. There was some work that was going to take place with the original allocation of funding for this program that did not take place, or also some things came in lower cost than anticipated, so that that money is being reallocated to fill this gap left by the pulling back of the grant funding.
Yeah, we rode along with Sustain Dane as they were doing their assessments. You can check that video out on the website. It's pretty cool stuff and how it works. So I encourage you to check it out if you're curious on what that work looks like, how they assess and then do the work. We move over to a resolution approving copier. What do you know about copy machines on the third floor?
We just are adding a new copy machine on the third floor, or probably replacing the existing copy machine on the third floor with this copy machine that will be added to our existing copy machine lease.
Fair enough. Resolution for Wisconsin Independent Networks contract renewals, or WIN.
Yeah, so this is typically fiber connection related for technology pieces, both within the city as well as the MPSIS, which is the Multi-Jurisdictional Public Safety Information Commission that we participate in with Verona, Middleton, Sun Prairie, and Monona. So this was a situation where we currently were on a month-to-month contract with WIN, and we were able to realize some ongoing savings by entering into a 3-year agreement with WIN.
All right. Now, on to the budget. We kind of talked about it earlier. So first you adopt some rules. So to start, you adopt some rules and then move into talking about the different amendments.
Yeah, our ordinances actually specify a few different things related to budget evening, so much so that each member can only speak a certain number of times. They can only discuss things for a certain length of time without voting to add more time and so forth. So this is also, and then any other additional rules that are recommended by city staff and or elected officials are kind of included in all of the special rule conversations. So every year the city council adopts these rules to govern the debate, so to speak, in the adoption of the budget.
All right, so I'm going to work through the amendments. So we're only 4 amendments on here. So we'll start with amendment number 1, and it was coming from Dave Herbst, the removal of communication funding.
Yeah, I will add before we get into the first amendment here that Mayor Arata Frada's budget was presented within state levy limits. There was about $50 or so left in the available levy limit. And ultimately, all 4 of these amendments that were submitted did not do anything to either positively or negatively impact the levy. These amendments all dealt with funding that was happening outside of our property tax levy through TID closure or other funds that are potentially available for use. So getting back to amendment number 1, that was an amendment to remove communications funding. The city council, through other authorized processes, has set aside approximately $100,000 that the city could utilize for communications and outreach activities. The funding for that is coming from our TID closure and the excess increment from that TID closure.
And that one did not pass.
Correct, that did not pass.
All right, Amendment 2 was to add an AED to McGaw pickleball courts.
This amendment did pass, and ultimately the city will look to add an AED at the McGaw Park. I think that it will likely get installed near or at the shelter, but a final location for installation has yet to be determined. So because those things don't necessarily do well in the wintertime out exposed to the elements, we'll probably look to put this in spring when the pickleball season and more park users are out and about.
All right. Then we had Amendment 3 was to add Fitchburg Youth Commission.
Yeah, so this amendment, I think, had about 3 different amendments to it during the conversation, and ultimately this was passed by the Common Council, and staff will work to offer a couple of options for the Common Council to consider in order to implement this concept in the way in which they desire to implement it. There's a couple of different ways that were discussed by some members last night on how they may prefer to proceed, and ultimately the council will need to act in order to create this commission in whatever way, shape, or form it is created. So staff will be working with the Common Council to bring something forward next year in order to have the council consider how they might want to implement it.
And then finally, Amendment number 4 was to add alder blogs.
Yeah, this amendment also ultimately passed, so staff will begin to work with our elected officials next year on how we might be able to best incorporate this functionality within our existing website, as well as within the priorities and workload of city staff. And ultimately, one of the main things that kind of preview here is where we discussed during this particular amendment is the rollout of a e-newsletter early next year. So we're hoping that in combination with the e-newsletter as well as implementation of the alder blogs, that our community will see enhanced communication and outreach efforts from the city and its elected officials.
We had I always say this word wrong, so you correct me here because I'm going to say it wrong, but omnibus?
Omnibus.
It's an amendment that's always set, I would always put it as, it's the amendment that's set aside for possible adjustments in pending what is going on with the budget, darn words.
Yeah. So this is also typically an amendment that is done every year, and basically what this allows is it gives the direction and authority to our finance director to finalize the numbers based upon the budget that has been created and passed, and then ultimately she can move forward with doing all of the necessary steps that she needs to take once a budget is passed in order to demonstrate that it's passed, and she gets all the inputs in and so forth. So
ultimately, did the budget pass last night?
yes, the budget did pass last night.
All right.
We have a 2026 operating budget.
Fantastic. And again, that budget will be available online at our website, fitchburgwi.gov. You can go back and watch the meeting from last night, which I encourage you to do if you didn't get to see it, if you're curious about how those amendments did play out. And the closing statement regarding the budget as well would be shared at that point. Our next Committee of the Whole meeting on a special Monday night, November 17th. It's a special meeting. We don't usually meet on a Monday, so if you're kind of like, wait, what's going on? Well, the holidays do play a role in this.
Correct, yeah.
But we do have a special meeting going on here. What's going on at that the Committee of the Whole?
Yeah, so the meeting was largely moved because it was the eve of Thanksgiving, and the Monday, November 17th was ultimately the date that worked for the Common Council members to attend a meeting. And this meeting will be for the sole purpose of interviewing two candidates who have expressed their interest in being appointed to fill the vacancy in District 4 created by their resignation of Alder Vafidari.
And then after that meeting, there'll be a further council meeting where they'll actually vote on those two members. So
Correct.
Just the interview process at the Committee of the Whole following meeting, which is right here, November 25th.
Exactly.
All right, Chad, thank you so much. Appreciate your time as always.
Thank you.